churches want to step to the margins, don't we? We say at St John's, we take the Mike Pilavachi sort of quote of the last, the least, and the lost is who we're there to, reach out to. Do you think churches are set up for dealing with mental health?
Well, it's a really complex question, Steve. And part of the reason I started the Mental Soul Foundation with Rob originally was because when I started talking about my own breakdown, particularly my need for medication, I experienced a lot of spiritual stigma. It wasn't mean-spirited at all. It was all shared in love. But other clergy friends telling me things like, maybe the devil had got into me, I needed to be exorcised. Others denying my mental health experience at all, just telling me I was just tired. Some warning me away from talking about mental health, saying, oh, damaged my career. Maybe people would call me the mental priest. So lots of, lots of concern. And it wasn't like mean concern. It was just, I think, misplaced understanding, maybe. Lots of historic stigma. And so the church was quite hostile to mental health issues at the time. This is quite a way back now. And that was a real motivator for me to start Mind and Soul Foundation, so we could start informing the language in church and the culture in church to be more accordant to mental health. Now, I'm not claiming that we are the sole entity doing that, and I'm sure we haven't. We're not like the people who've made the change. A lot of the change happened socially. So we were involved in the Time to Change campaign, which was a national campaign supported by Comic Relief, and actually that did have a massive impact on social understanding of mental health, and that has also dripped through into the church. I would say from 2012 onwards, we saw a really radical shift in the attitudes of churches towards mental emotional health issues. And really, we felt originally like we were sort of locked in a garage, kind of knocking on the door saying, hello, let us in. And we had a very kind of, there was a very reluctant kind of acceptance of the work we were trying to do. From 2012 onwards, the door was being more than open, and churches all around the country and dioceses asking us to help with training and education around mental emotional health stuff. So the culture is changing, which is a great thing, but there's still more we can do. What we tend to find now is that, what we're trying to work away from is this idea that it's either a spiritual answer or there's a psychological answer. Yeah. What we want to see is parity in the way that churches approach physical health and mental health. Yeah. So if someone's got cancer in your congregation, that we encourage them to get the best possible treatment with doctors and hospital, and we also pray for them. Because traditionally, when someone comes to us with a very extreme depression, we've encouraged them to pray harder and to go for a nice walk every day and have a cup of tea with a friend, and think that that's the medicine that they need, and have been very suspicious of medication, psychiatrists in residence care, and actually wanting to change that culture. And I think that's starting to happen now. But education and stigma reduction and changing the culture so it's more accommodating and softer is really the key work we're trying to do. So the culture is changing, but there's still work to do. And we just mustn't forget that at the same time as we want to support a medicalised view of mental health issues, that we are whole people, mind, body and spirit. And when someone's depressed or when they're anxious or when they have schizophrenia, that we still need to love the whole person. It's still loving them spiritually, loving them psychologically, loving them physically. We say that there's no health without mental health, because mental health is a key component to our spiritual health and our physical health as well. So taking an integrated view is really important. And the church can help individuals who are struggling with mental health by supporting their spiritual well-being, as well as supporting their emotional health recovery. So that's a part that psychiatric services find it harder to do. And actually they're partnering with us now to support people who have spiritual, Christian spirituality, to enable their whole self-recovery.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's amazing. I think, absolutely, spot on, which you would be, but it's that thing. I think Rick Warren says it's all sees, isn't it? It's chemistry, it's circumstances, it's complex, and it's just all that stuff put together. And it's it's like I think it's Matt Haig who talks. His book's got a picture of the all the threads all sort of interwoven, and that's the complexity that we're dealing with sometimes. And sometimes we pull one strand, expecting everything to sort of, and it just gets tighter. And
absolutely
amazing. And so, and with anxiety, with different things like that, coming in, not that we can at the moment, but coming into a church service, it can be quite a massive barrier. What could we do better is probably where the question would be.
Well, Steve, I guess with 1 in 4 people, having a kind of clinically diagnosed condition at any time, we're talking about the diversity of the human race and the diversity of us as Christian people. I don't think that there's ever going to be a one sort of stop shop way of saying that our churches are mental health friendly. In terms of the mechanized things that we do, the key thing for me is about creating cultures that are supportive of people's mental and emotional health issues. I think, personally, I don't think that there's any sort of spirituality that we can say is particularly friendly towards people with mental health issues or not. Some people do like a more contemplative service, particularly if they find that lots of noise can stimulate their symptoms. So particularly people who maybe are experiencing voices, delusional experiences, find a very intense and chaotic environment can be quite upsetting and quite frightening because they can't discern, if you like, some of that difference within their mind, but where the sources of sound are coming from. As an example, some people who are very, very agoraphobic find bigger services very difficult to engage with and might do better online.
Yeah.
But just because you're depressed doesn't necessarily mean you want an Anglo-Catholic setting or that you want a more charismatic setting. I just think every individual, in all of our diversity and with all of the complexity of our mental health issues, will choose a setting that they think is right for them at the time, if there is a choice available. But the key thing that they need to know is that is their vicar and is their PCC and are the elders and leaders of the church supportive of their mental health recovery, or are they stigmatizing? And I think the key thing we offer one another in Jesus' name is love and compassion. And whatever the style of your church, if it offers love and compassion to people who are hurting in their mind, then I think it's doing an incredible thing, and people will come, and also people will be able to say, Steve, I found this really difficult about the service last week because of my emotional mental health struggle, which is something we've been talking about for 30 years where disability has been concerned. If someone is hearing impaired and they've come to us and said, hey, I can't hear very well, can you install a hearing aid loop? We've been all too happy to do that, I hope. And the result has been that we've got more disability-friendly churches. What we're now doing and hopefully catching up with this is the idea that we have more mental health-friendly churches, which are, maybe there are less mechanized things to do to make the environment better, but there's certainly more relational things that we can do to make the environment better. And some people like appointing specific mental health befrienders, having people who can support people during coffee time or social time, welcoming people later and giving people permission to come late if they find the entrance and the exit points stressful, allowing people emotional befriending dogs or pets that they can bring as a calming resource. There's lots of different ways in which we can work, but I think the key thing is the attitude towards welcome and compassion and care.